We've all felt that specific, burning frustration, the anger that flares up when the world operates on deep, glaring unfairness, where people who do the right thing suffer, while those driven by raw greed seem to thrive. This exact anger was consuming a young monk named Jinwoo. But right next to him was a glaring anomaly, a fellow monk named Hyejin. Based on the facts of his life, Hyejin should have been drowning in grief. He had recently lost his father, a loss that initially left him bitter and resentful toward the world. Yet that bitterness had vanished. Whether he was sweeping fallen leaves in the courtyard or drawing water from the well, Hyejin moved with a quiet, undeniable joy. The heavy sadness that used to define him was nowhere to be found. Jinwoo eventually confronted Hyejin under an old ginkgo tree at sunset. His voice shook as he demanded an explanation. How could anyone remain so serene when good people fall ill, bad people prosper, and raw effort rarely guarantees a fair outcome? Hyejin didn't argue. He admitted that he once felt that exact same anger, until he began to see the mechanics of how the world actually works. He then invited Jinwoo to see those mechanics for himself. What Hyejin was about to show him reveals a counterintuitive truth about human suffering. Finding inner peace doesn't require us to fight the world's unfairness directly. It requires us to shift how we perceive our own existence within the world. Hyejin led Jinwoo down the mountain to a small, quiet reservoir as the sunset deepened into dusk. The environment was perfectly still. Suddenly, a single fish jumped, breaking the surface of the water. A small circular ripple formed and began pushing outward. Hyejin pointed at the water and asked a simple question. Where do you think that ripple ends? Jinwoo assumed it would fade, but a vector schematic shows the ripple's energy merely transfers. Zooming out, we trace the kinetic chain reaction. Water bends reeds, rustling reeds startle birds, and their upward trajectory disrupts the air, shaking the leaves above. This is the baseline physical rule of our reality. No action, no matter how tiny, ever occurs in total isolation. Every physical event is part of an unbroken kinetic web. And if the physical environment operates this way, it challenges the idea that human beings somehow operate independently from it. Later that night, their Zen Master escalated this concept with a jarring question for Jinwoo. Who owns your breath? Jinwoo answered instinctively. He claimed it. His breath, his lungs, and his body belonged exclusively to him. Opening a window, the Master revealed our breath is a traveler. Tracing global atmospheric currents, air gathers over oceans and forests before entering our airway. Crossing a cellular membrane, the outside atmosphere literally becomes the energy allowing you to think. This lack of the boundary extends directly to the mind. His language came from his parents. His walk mimicked from his peers. Even his most private thoughts were built from the vocabulary and experiences provided by thousands of other people. The concept of an isolated, strictly independent self begins to dissolve under this evidence. We are assembled from borrowed pieces of the surrounding world. Days later, a fire broke out in the village at the mountain's base. The monks rushed down the darkened paths toward the orange glow, entering a situation where the theory of interconnectedness would be tested by real-world chaos. In the middle of the fire, covered in soot, an exhausted Jinwoo found himself handing a bucket of water to an old man weeping over his burning home. The old man looked up and whispered, "Thank you." In that moment, Jinwoo's reaction to the interaction shifted. Previously, he would have seen this as a tragic collision between two strangers in a broken world. Now, holding the man's hand, he felt the old man's loss as a physical tension in his own body, not as an act of pity, but as a recognition of shared energy. He was experiencing the visceral, undeniable reality of dependent origination. He realized that by sustaining the old man, he was actively maintaining a vital part of the very network that allowed his own life to exist. Back at the temple, Jinwoo realized the source of his previous frustration. He had spent his life acting as if he were a solitary figure fighting against a hostile, separate universe. The Zen Master looked at his two students. Hyejin had been stuck in the past through grief. Jinwoo had been stuck in the future through anger at injustice. These were distinct emotional burdens, but they shared the same root. the belief in a separate me that can be harmed or cheated by the world. By tracing the ripple and the breath, they saw that the self has no hard edges. If the self is a collection of everyone else, then Hyejin's father wasn't gone. He was a permanent part of the kinetic web. And the injustice Jinwoo saw was merely a small snapshot of a much larger interconnected system. When you see yourself as a single flower blooming out of an infinite, unbroken web of connections, the logic of your suffering changes. You finally lose the grounds for arrogance, and more importantly, you lose the basis for despair.